Okay, so today we're going to show you how to reflect a shape across a line of reflection. Okay, and this could also be called a line of symmetry. And first we're going to do it just using the coordinate grid, and then we'll show you how to do it using patty paper. So the first thing that you have to do when you're just using the coordinate grid is to count the number of spaces from a point of the shape to the line of reflection. So from point O to the line of reflection there's one space. So then I'm going to count across the line of reflection one space, make my point there and label it O prime. I'm going to do the same thing with all the points here. So from point N, it's 1, 2, 3 spaces. So 1, 2, 3 spaces. I'm going to make that point N prime. Point U is 1, 2, so it's going to be 1, 2. And this is going to be point U prime. And then point M, one space, so one space across, is M prime. And then all I do is I take my trusty ruler and I'm going to join these points together in the same way that they were ordered in the original polygon or the original shape to create the reflection. And there you have it. I reflected M-N-O-U across the line of symmetry to create M prime, N prime, O prime, U prime. Moving on to the second one, we see that this is the line of reflection, and half of the shape is above the line and half the shape is below the line. But we're still going to do the same process when we're using the coordinate grid. In other words, I'm going to look at point P here and I'm going to say, okay, it is 2 spaces from the line of reflection. It's 2 spaces above, so I'm going to go down 2 spaces below and mark that as point P prime. Okay, point Q is 2 spaces below, so I'm going to mark it 2 spaces above. That's point Q. And point J is 1 space above, so I'm going to go 1 space below and make that point J prime. And now I just got to be careful when I put them together. J is attached to Q, so I'm going to draw that line. J is also attached to P, so I'm going to draw that line. And then J and P go together. And I think I said that incorrectly. Okay? But as you can see, we have once again reflected the shape across the line of reflection. Okay, for the last shape here, we have to be careful because it's in an awkward shape. Okay, the line of reflection is slanted, so we have to make sure that we don't make any silly mistakes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move over point S and make that S prime. And then there's a large gap between T and the line of reflection, so that matches with this gap here. So this is T prime. And now R, this point here, to me this looks a little bit awkward, okay? So I'm just going to count this point here, and then I'm going to go down to these two here that are far apart. So when I cross the line, I'm going to go here, here, and then up one here. So that's going to give me R prime. And now when I join these points together, once again I should have a perfect reflection of the shape. And there we go. We've got R prime, S prime, T prime. And because they're reflections, distances are different between the points, remember, the properties, and also the orientation is opposite, or is reversed. Here, clockwise, we have TSR. Here, clockwise, we have TRS. Same thing goes with all three of these figures. Okay. Moving down the page, I thought I would do number 5 or B for you, and letter B and letter D and letter D in number 2. It says determine the pre-image coordinates, then reflect it and determine the image coordinates. So first I want us to actually plot the pre-image coordinate. In this case it's 5, 7 for point B. So I'm going to go to X is 5 and Y is 7. And that's this point here. And they have the label for B, you just don't know where to put it, so you put it there. And then it says we're going to reflect it across the y-axis, okay? So if we reflect this point across the y-axis, this is the y-axis, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the y-axis, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the other side of the y-axis, this is going to be point B prime, and its coordinates are going to be X is negative 5 and Y is still 7. So the new coordinates for B prime are negative 5, 7. And then when we go down to D, D gives the points, this is the pre-image, and the points are 4, 4. So X is 4, Y is 4. It's this point right here. So again, to give the image, the reflection across, let's see. Oh, this is across the x-axis, okay? We're reflecting across the x-axis. So it's 4 down to the x-axis. And now I'm going to go down 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is going to be point D prime. And so its coordinates are 4, negative 4. So 4, negative 4. Okay. Now the last one we have on the guided practice is number 3, where we are supposed to determine the name of the point that meets the given conditions. And so this is talking about reflecting across line M, point A. So first we have to find line M, and this is line M right here, okay? So if point A was reflected across line M, it would be then point E. Okay? Point A to line M across E. Alright? And let's try E also, okay? So reflecting across N, point H. So here is point H. And it's reflecting across N. Let me find N. N is here. Alright? So it goes across N. So it's going to be, as it reflects across N, it's going to be point D. And there you go. So that's doing it with the coordinate paper and then answering the other kinds of questions they have about reflections and pre-image versus image. Okay, so now we want to work on question 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to do 3A, 3E, and 3D. Okay, and what we're trying to do is we're going to determine the name of the point that meets the given condition. That's the directions. And on A, the condition is that we're going to reflect across point M, we're going to reflect across line M, point A, and we're going to determine what point that would be from this drawing. So what we have to remember is that the line of reflection creates a perpendicular bisector between the pre-image, which is point A, and the image. So if we look at line M, which is right here, and we say that's going to be the perpendicular bisector between the pre-image and the image, then that means it's going to create a 90-degree angle and it's going to split that segment in half. So the only point that fits the bill with line M being the line of reflection would be point C, because here we have line M is a perpendicular bisector of segment AC, and segment AB is equal to segment BC, so the answer to A would be C. we're going to do the same thing for letter E. If we reflect across line N for point H and we find this is the pre-image, so we're going to find the image. So line N is this line right here, okay? And if the segment that connects the pre-image with the image is going to be perpendicular to line N, that means that it's going to come in at this angle, so we can see that the only point that meets the criteria to be the image is point B, because this now line N creates a perpendicular bisector of segment HB. So the point here is point B. And I think I made a mistake when I was presenting this in class, and I think I gave a different answer for this. So I want you all to focus in on the fact that the segment that joins the pre-image to the image has to be perpendicular to the line of reflection. And the line of reflection is the perpendicular bisector of the segment that connects the pre-image to the image. Okay? So now we're going to do the same thing with letter D. And on this one, they want us to find the pre-image. They've given us the image, and they're saying it's going to be reflected across line P. So this is line P right here. And we've got B right here. So we've got to make P become the perpendicular bisector of B and its pre-image. So the only way that line P can be the perpendicular bisector is if it comes to a 90-degree angle with that segment. And so this is the only segment that works here. So the pre-image has to be point F. And there you got it. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to show you these same three reflections, but instead of using or counting the points on the coordinate grid, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use pattern paper. So I'm going to move this one out of the way and I'm going to bring a fresh sheet in. We're not going to do 2 and 3 again because nothing's changed on those. Everything is still the same. But I have my pattern paper, okay? And I'm going to lay it down here, and I'm going to make sure when I lay it down that actually I'm going to lay it down differently than normal, okay? And I'm going to line up the edge of the pattern paper with the line of reflection. And I bring this down some here. Okay, first thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to make a mark that covers the pattern paper and the actual paper that I'm going to draw the line of reflection on, so that I can line it back up in the proper position. And then I'm just going to trace, as usual, I'm going to trace the figure onto the pattern paper. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip the pattern paper over. I'm going to line up the point on the paper with the point on the pattern paper. And now I can see where all my points belong. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of keep track of them by folding back the paper and saying, okay, this is the first point. This is point O prime. Make sure, yep, that's good. Okay, right here, this is point N prime. So if I've done it right, this point right here, hopefully you can see, is N prime. And each time I set this back, I'm going to make sure that this point here lines up with the point on the paper, and that the pattern paper itself lines up with the line of reflection. Okay? And now I've got this point down here, which is point M. So this is point M right here, or M prime I should say. And then last but not least, let's make sure everything is lined up. Hang on a second. Okay, everything's lined up. This is going to be the last point right here. So when I move it, last point right there is this. And this is going to be point U prime. So now I can put the pattern paper to the side. And once again I can join my points using my straight edge. And what I've done is I've created the reflection, instead of by counting, using the coordinate grid, I've created it using pattern paper. Now we can do the same thing on the second one and the third one. On the second one, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. Alright? I'm going to make the line right here. And I'm going to say this is line number 1. So line number 1, just in case I have problems when it comes to reverse it. And I'm going to draw this. This is point P. I don't think I labeled the points on my first one, but I should have. This is point J. And I'm joining it together like that. And I'm just going to flip it. And again, I'm going to make sure that this line here joins the line on the patty paper. So there we go. And it lines up with the line of reflection perfectly. And so I've got this first point here, which is point J. So this will be J prime. And I've got this point right here, which will be P, or P prime, as the case may be. Okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over a little bit. And I'm going to make another line here. I'm going to say this is number 2. And I'm going to draw in Q. Okay? And now I'm going to reverse this one. Make sure it lines up exactly with the line of reflection. And that this line matches up. And point Q should be right here. So when I fold it, I've got point Q right here. Okay, so I'm going to label that point Q. And once again, we've got J to P, or J prime to P prime. P prime to Q prime. Forgot to put the prime symbol there. Okay, and then J to Q, like here, so J prime to Q prime. Okay, and once again, I've managed to reflect that figure across the line of reflection. My last one is basically just as easy as this one. It's not as complicated as this one. All I have to do is, when I line it up to the line of reflection, because the line of reflection is angled, I'm going to line up the patty paper so it's angled as well. Okay? And first thing I'm going to do is make that line so they'll match up. And then I'm going to go and draw in RST. And this is T. This is R, and this is S, and I'm going to flip. Remember, I flip the paper over, okay? I don't keep it on the same side. I flip it over. I join this line on the patty paper up with the one I put on the paper. I make sure that it's even with the line of reflection. Okay? Now I say, okay, S should be this point here. So that's S prime. Right? R is right here. Whoops, hang on, I just moved stuff. So when I move stuff, I got to take the moment of time to make sure it lines back up, okay? There we go. I think I got it here. Okay, R is right here. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to put R there, or R prime. Once again, I'm going to make sure that's correct. Okay, good. And then T is down here at this point. So I believe T prime is this point. So before I draw all my lines in, I'm going to make sure they match up. It looks good. So I move the patty paper out of the way. And now I'm going to use my straight edge to draw the sides. And there you go. And that's how you do it using patty paper. So thank you for watching, and you have a great day.